So today we'll be painting a notebook cover or a sketchbook cover using acrylic. So this is what I've done so far, and I'll do the other side with you. Hello, Helen. Where are you from? And what medium do you like to use? Okay, so I like to use acrylic when I paint the covers of my sketchbooks or notebooks. If you don't want to paint, oh, okay, so this time is really good for you. All right, so you can also cover your notebooks or books if you don't want to paint directly on them. So yes, so this is very comfortable for you. Acrylics is your go-to. Okay, me too. I like to paint with acrylics because I don't like to wait for a long time between layers. I'm very impatient. Okay, so this is the one that I've done. So it's just gradient actually, and I've sketched it using a Jelly Roll white gel pen, but I'm going to paint over this with white acrylic. So it's just very simple, but it will really bring life to your covers. I did this with this sketchbook because it became really dirty already because it was originally white. So it's also a good way to clean up your messy covers. All right, so I'm going to flip the camera down so you'll see my desk. So this is our cover painting live tutorial. Okay, I'm gonna flip it down and flip it around, so don't be surprised. Okay, and then I'm gonna flip it around, not to worry. Okay, and then I'm also gonna zoom in a bit. All right, so there you have it. Okay, so very easy. I just have actually 4 colors. I have my hooker's green, and then cobalt blue, and then my going soon cerulean blue, and then titanium white. So first, okay, so this part is almost done, just the white acrylic paint. I'm gonna flip to the other side. Okay, so earlier I already primed this with gesso. So it's good because it creates a nice painting surface. So you can, I just used 1 layer. You can do more if you'd like, but I think 1 is pretty good as it is. So you can see it has a nice chalky surface already. All right, so since it's been primed, I'm just gonna go squeeze my paints directly here. Of course, you can squeeze them in a mixing plate if you'd like that. Right, so I'm going to start with some of this hooker's green, and I'm just going to add here. If you just like blues, you can just remove the green. You can use warmer colors as well. So this is just very simple gradation, quick and easy. So of course, you can make even more detailed ones if you'd like. So as you can see, I'm just squeezing it directly here. Very lazy, very easy. If you've worked with your paints, you already know how much you need to squeeze out. And then I'm putting some cerulean now, and here as well. Okay, need to buy a new one soon. I'm running out, but this is one of my favorite blues to use, cerulean. It's really pretty blue. So by itself, it's a nice blue. When it's thinned down, it's also great. I'm sure we all have our own favorite colors, right, to paint with. So it's really a preference. Okay, so this one has sort of separated. So this happens sometimes. Some paints, you don't realize they've been there for some time. The binder separates from the pigment. So since it's white, I definitely have another one. So white is probably the most stocked paint in your kit. All right, so here I've squeezed them out like this, and now I'm gonna get my brush. So I'm using my filbert brush from Zen Art's Renoir collection. So this can be used for both oil and acrylic. So filbert brushes really are my favorite brushes. I have a lot of these and I love them so much because they're so versatile. I use a lot of pinks, purples, and blues. Oh, very nice. Very nice and bright, vibrant colors. They look really well together. Okay. Perfect for sunsets as well. Very vibrant sunsets. Pinks, blues, and purples. Okay. So just wetting my brush just enough. Okay. So when I do this, I really have a huge jar of water, so you can see, because it takes longer for it to get dirty. Okay, so I start from down here, from the greens, and blend them together, the blue and green. So since it's acrylic, of course, we have to work quickly, so it doesn't dry on us, and then we can't spread it anymore. Okay, so if you're worried that it's going to get in the pages, so just cover the pages like this, for example. Okay, you can do that. But if you're not too worried, then no worries. Okay, so I'm just spreading it, going back and forth, just blending them. Okay, so while it's still wet, it's still quite blendable. Okay, and then that's why it's nice to have a cloth, so you can wipe off the excess paint. Then I'm going to go to the next layer, squeezed paint. Just go back and forth, just blending it out. And now I'm crossing towards the cerulean, so it's getting lighter. So I go over it, and then I go over where the two meet, and go back and forth there to blend it, so that it creates a nice smooth gradient. Okay, so when the paint is still very wet, it's really quite easy to do this soft blending, this gradient blending. Okay, and now crossing towards the white. I may have put too much white. Anyway, let's see. Okay, and now the white part mixed with a little cerulean. Okay, yes, I did put too much, so I'm just going to wipe it off. Okay. Then I'm going to blend down. So it's up to you how dark you want the bottom to be and how light the top will be. You can always adjust this. You can start from the colors here, or you can just make everything a darker gradient. But gradient is really one of the quickest ways to cover your notebooks but still have it interesting. So just work it until you're satisfied. So if you're not too worried about making everything looking too blended, then you can just stop anytime. So right now I'm just fixing how they blend. Sometimes I also like to add a little bit of blue, of the cobalt blue here and there, like this part. It's too sudden, so I'm just going to add a little bit of the cobalt just to soften the gradient. And there, it's looking better. Okay, so I'm now going back towards the top. And okay, I'm happy with this. So just using blues, greens, one green actually, one green, two kinds of blues, and white, I've created this really nice gradient. So this is inspired, I'm going to create a water themed cover. So it's also nice to, if you can't think of something to do, then you can just think of a theme and then work around that. So earlier I decided on this ocean theme. Okay, so now I'm just gonna wait for this to dry, but since I already did the other side, I can already do that. Okay, so I already pre-sketched it earlier. So when I sketch on this, I just use a white gel pen I mentioned earlier, this, so that I can easily see it over the acrylic, and then I just sketch it out quickly, and then that's my sketch. Sometimes I also like to use, if it's just a rough sketch, I just use a white graphite pencil. That also works. So whatever works for you, you can just, or if you like to paint directly, you can do it too, of course, if you don't like sketching before. So now I'm going to switch to a fine line brush, okay, since I'm going to be doing this really detailed waves. Okay, I'm going to use white acrylic paint for this. Okay, and then I'll just squeeze it out into my mixing plate. Okay, so what do you like to paint? What do you have favorite subjects to paint? Like some people like to paint people or landscapes or flowers. Okay, so I'm going to just, I don't like to squeeze out a lot when I'm using acrylic because they dry really fast. So I don't want to waste paint. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top so that I don't smudge it. And then since I've sketched it out, it makes it really easier for me to just go over it. In this part, you can play around with the line weight. So you can make the lines fatter in some areas and then tapering to thinner lines. It also gives your waves that extra depth. So I'm going to make them fatter at the bottom and then thinner where they crest. So it adds to the idea that they're going up. No, but okay. Well, that's nice. At least you can go around and explore all the different subject matter. For example, me, I'm quite attached to doing people, but I'm also challenging myself to explore other subjects like florals, and also maybe try to do some abstract sometime. It's quite difficult to cross over when you get so comfortable with one subject, but it's always good to challenge yourself. Okay, so I'm just going over this now so you can see how much thicker it is. So I'll even, let me zoom in further so it's much nearer there. Okay, so already it looks better than the sketch. I avoid drawing people at all costs. Why? It feels so hard, right? Okay. Is it the face, or is it like the mixing of the skin colors? So Sometimes it's the proportions for some, but sometimes it's also the mixing, the skin tone mixing. So if it's skin tone mixing, we actually have an article about that. It says for oils, but the skin mixing, the color mixing is just the same for acrylic. So if you'd like to check out that skin tone mixing and get the proportions right. Okay, it is difficult. At the start, oh my gosh, in school I had to do maybe about 50, that's part of our like homework, 50 people in different positions. I was in despair, but after that I really learned. So someday when you're feeling more adventurous, I'll also be writing an article about that, about the proportions of the body. If it's just a face, we already have articles about that, how to draw the face, the basic frontal face, and also about how to draw the face from the side at an angle. So you can also check that out if you feel like you're getting more adventurous and you'd like to try it out. So right now, just easy cover painting. You can do this with, earlier I was debating between doing waves or making this a warm gradient and then doing a flower line drawing. So just with the gradient and just with a basic line drawing on top, you can totally do a lot of variations to your notebook cover painting or sketchbook cover painting, and even for your books. It can even be a book cover painting. So just, if you, of course, you love your books, you don't want to draw directly on your book, so just cover your book with a thick enough paper and paint over it. So you can even paint over it with a base layer and then use markers or pens to draw something else. So it doesn't have to be all continuously painting. It can be painting and mixed in with other media. Or you can even do collage. Wouldn't that be fun as well? Okay, so we have other lives already you might want to check out. Last week, Theodora made also a live about autumn leaves, painting autumn leaves. So since it's almost autumn, that would be a great video to check out as well. And I also did, oh, you now have internet. Yay! Why, you lost it earlier? Internet has been so erratic nowadays since many people are just at home. Okay, so you're just, I'm just going over my sketch with a white acrylic. And then later, if I feel like it's still too light, I'm just gonna go over it again. So I really love to use these detail brushes because they're much shorter. They have this grip handle, and they really keep everything much easier to paint those fine lines. So this is our fine line series. Okay, so just going over this, so you don't even have to make it too smooth or too detailed. It's up to you. Okay, so here I just like to do this. It's like inspired from the wave, and there's so many ways to draw waves as well, so you can even play around with that, which I will do on this other side. on the back cover, I'm gonna use different kinds of waves or line waves. So last Monday I did a live about floral painting, but loose floral painting specifically. So you can also check that out if you're interested in doing some loose watercolor painting. Okay, so getting there. Of course, you can also change colors. I just like to use the white because it perfectly complements it. It rises from the blues, and of course, since waves also have the white foaminess. So this is just a basic line drawing. So it takes time, but the process is pretty easy. So just a gradient and just a line drawing on top. And you can even play around with your gradient. If you can tape before you paint over, you add a tape. You tape whichever part. You can do a diagonal or horizontal, or halve it, and do different kinds of gradient on the top and the bottom. So you can play around with that as well. So I love the use of masking tape. Okay, so you can even just doodle if you don't want to paint anything that is representative. You don't know what to draw. You can totally doodle. Okay. So it's good to have in your set of brushes detail brushes, because they will really come in useful. So there's much control over the usual size brushes. Okay, getting there. So just take your time. So I forgot this part. I try to work from left and down, since I'm right-handed, so I don't easily smudge over the parts that I'm working on. But if I forget, sometimes I also do the pinky thing, where I use my pinky to lift my hand off the parts that are wet. Okay, so I went over that a bit. I'm gonna clean it up. So if you went over something, just go over with a wet brush and just go over that part, and then use your paper towel or your cloth to wipe it off. So it's part of the painting process. You'll make mistakes, but you can still lift it off. Okay, so this is the thing about acrylic. You have to work quickly, or at least you can also try working in batches. Like some people, when they paint 2 to 3 paintings at one time, and they just go from one painting to the next, since acrylic really dries really fast and you don't want to waste paint. So don't squeeze out too much, or you can always spray it every now and then with water. If you feel like it's going to start drying soon, just spray your palette with water to moisten your paints again. In my case, since I work several days in a row, I have a Stay Wet palette that I use. So it has a moistened sponge, and it has a special paper where I squeeze the paints, and it has a cover, so even if I paint like 3 days later, it's still wet. It keeps the paints wet. So there are tricks to keeping your acrylic wet for a longer time. Yes, really, right? It's a great idea. Painting at once. I'm too focused on one. I think I have to also work on that and paint in batches as well. Might be even good for time management. And it's also, I think it's a topic that I want to explore, like painting one kind of subject but in several different ways. So I think I'll try that out as well. Painting several paintings at once. Break my one painting at a time style. I think it also gives you time to reevaluate your works in between moving from one to the next. Okay, so I like it. It's looking good against the gradient of the greens and blues. Some people are not fans of acrylic, but actually once you've gotten used to working with it, you'll also adjust your technique and you can really make it look beautiful. Some people find it too flat, but I don't think so. I have paintings that are really vibrant, so it's just a matter of getting used to the medium and making it work. So you can totally have fun with acrylic as well, especially for people who have who get easily bothered with strong smells. So oil can be difficult for them to handle. So acrylic is a good choice as well. But of course, oil is also really great, especially for painting skin tones. It really gives the skin this vibrancy and like a luminous quality. It's hard to achieve in acrylic, but it's doable, but it's much harder compared to if you just painted skin with oil. So I do switch from acrylic to oil every now and then. So my cover painting is getting there. So next thing I will try is probably painting on a bullet journal. Do I use the same brushes for different paint mediums? Yes, I try. There are brushes that I use across. Like for example, I also use this for watercolor. But as much as possible, I do try to use different brushes for different mediums. Like I have favorite brushes for watercolor, for example, like my round ones, like this. I don't use them for acrylic. I use different brushes for acrylic, and my oil acrylic brushes I can interchange as long as I clean them well between uses. So But there are brushes that I have that I just use for oil, that I just use for acrylic, or that I just use for watercolor. Some that I use across. But it's a good idea to have brushes separately for each medium, so you don't also contaminate your works, especially if you forgot to wash them thoroughly. So just if you have favorites, for example, like me, I have some favorites for watercolor. I just use it for watercolor because I don't want to ruin the the good relationship I have with it. We have our favorite brushes. We already know how they work, how they twist, and things like that. But if they're not your favorite, then yeah, go ahead. You can use them for your other mediums. Just make sure that when you switch mediums, clean them properly. So do a deep cleaning with soap and all. Especially if you used it for oil, then you really have to clean it properly before you use it for acrylic, so that if there's leftover oil, it won't mix with your acrylic that is acrylic based, that might create problems in the future. I get it's much easier to use brushes between acrylic and watercolor since they're both water based. But if you don't wash it thoroughly after using acrylic, and for example you painted up to here, up to the insides of the ferrule, and you didn't wash it well, it's going to dry up inside and your hairs will splay, so it's going to ruin the tip. So just wash it really well, and to avoid that problem, since watercolor can be reactivated but not acrylic. Once acrylic is dry, it's really dry. Okay, so I'm almost there. So I'm actually thinking of doing the back, or I'm thinking also of adding gold here. I think it would also look great with the blues and greens. Yes, so we have the same method. We have our favorites that we really don't use for others. And yeah, because of course when we invest in our brushes, we really don't want to ruin them also. And I do have some times where I forget to wash a brush that I use for acrylic, that I'm so really upset after because it's dried. You can still, of course, try to remove the paint. There are solvents, strong solvents. You can start with rubbing alcohol. So rubbing alcohol you can try to remove the paint with rubbing alcohol. Just submerge up to, not until the ferrule, because it will loosen the glue as well. Just up to here where the hair is, and then leave it there for an hour, and then check and massage it, check if it has softened. If it still doesn't get the paint out, you can try stronger solvents, but start out with alcohol first so it's not too damaging, especially if the brush is synthetic. So natural hair brushes are much more forgiving for cleanups that you forgot to wash your brushes. For synthetics, if you use stronger solvents, it can really ruin the hair. So I have both synthetic and natural. So depending on the technique that I'm doing, I switch around. So for example, when I'm using acrylic and I'm blending, I like to use synthetic brushes. They really give me a nice blend. blending finish. So it's also good to have different kinds of brushes, different brush hairs, so you can explore how they change your strokes, your blending. Okay, so I'm the detail kind of painter. It's so hard for me to break away from this, but yeah, that's why I did a loose floral watercolor last time, and now I'm doing this cover painting to do some, you know, more relaxed, more explorative way of painting. But still, I did the detailed waves. But for the background gradient, and you can just do plain gradient actually. Just like I mentioned earlier, you can divide your cover into several different sections with tape, and then paint each part differently, different gradients, and then wait for it to dry. And then once it's dry, remove the tape. Be careful to remove the tape, and then just like that, you'll have a very interesting cross-section of gradients. So I'm actually gonna do something like that for some of my covers. Okay, so I also like to use golds and bronzes and you know, metallics when I paint. It's fun. I like it. It gives it pizzazz. Not for all, but sometimes. Sometimes some parts just look nice with some metallics. So also have fun with that. You can also, again, do mixed media. You can even do collage. You can even do washi tapes, for example. Just all washi tapes and do some painting. So I love book covers, because you can book covers, notebook covers, or generally cover painting, because you can really have fun with it. You can explore it, you can stick things, you can just do anything. So it's this is it. So this is my front cover, and then I'm happy with it. Later on I might think of adding more. Like I think earlier I wanted gold, maybe not here, maybe I'll do it at the back. So I can just wait for this to dry. I can also blow dry it to make it go faster. But yeah, this is I'm gonna zoom out so it's not too okay there, so you can see the full effect. So this is a stitched sketchbook that I have. So this is the back, this is the front, and for the back, yes, I think that I might explore the gold. I can even use the same waves, maybe just going the opposite direction, so they're like they're mirrors of each other, but maybe in gold. So have fun with yours, and do share your own version. Okay, so I'm gonna flip back the camera so I can say goodbye with my face. Okay, so this is it for this cover painting session. I hope you had fun, and I hope you learned something from me. So this is just plain color gradient. I just used 3 colors to recap. I used Hooker's Green, Cobalt Blue, Cerulean Blue, and Titanium White. So you can use the same. You can use whatever you have, explore. You can use warmer colors and maybe create a sort of sunset-y color. Up to you. Have fun. So many variations you can do with color gradient. That's why I love it. So, and it's very easy. And then you can play around with the top part and just have fun with it. So please do share your own cover painting artwork, and I'll look forward to seeing it. See you next time. Bye.